Welcome to JK Tells a Story, where real-life dramas unfold. Sit back and enjoy today's tale. You can live for a long time with the confidence that your life is flowing smoothly and calmly, and the only problem in your life is a slow internet connection. Indeed, a beautiful wife, 2 wonderful children, and only bright prospects for a happy retirement ahead. But everything can change overnight, and suddenly you find yourself on the sidelines of life, walking in a completely different direction, surrounded by completely different people. I was born premature. My parents spent my entire childhood trying to protect me from life's storms. I walked outside with the neighborhood kids, always under the supervision of one of my parents or my grandmother. My coming home at odd hours was a tragedy of universal proportions. The boys in our small Ohio town were always good psychologists. They had a keen sense of human nature and reacted accordingly. They really sensed my weakness. I was bullied by everybody, even the girls. It got to the point where I was afraid to go outside. Right beyond our front door, I was met by an aggressive crowd of peers, and the educational work began. I would come home covered in bruises and scrapes. My parents couldn't do anything about it. They tried talking to the other kids' parents, but it only made things worse. You can't keep following a teenager around all the time, protecting him from adversity. It seemed that my hopeless childhood would never end, and my days would be spent hiding in my room. Then one winter day, my mother's cousin Jack came to visit us. He was finishing up at West Point and was about to be commissioned as an officer. He immediately assessed my situation. It was winter, and hockey battles were going on in our neighborhood rink. Clearly, my place was outside that hockey rink. Uncle Jack had been watching my suffering for some time, and one night he came into my room. "Listen, Mike," he said, sitting on the edge of my bed. "Humans are predators. There's only one law among predators, the law of the strongest. You'll be beaten all your life until you fight back, until you stand up for yourself. Nothing will change otherwise. A man's honor is everything. You don't have it now, but there's a chance to get it back. Don't be afraid of pain, blood, or getting hurt. Gather your courage and fight back with dignity. You might lose, but your honor won't suffer." Uncle Jack patted my shoulder, lit a cigarette by the window, and left the room. 2 days later, I was accepted onto the neighborhood hockey team. One of the boys got sick, and I was assigned to replace him. The game was in full swing when a 3-man offense rolled toward the goal. I gave an accurate pass to my teammate, but he missed and couldn't put the game away. In the tense situation that followed, of course I was blamed for everything. They called me all kinds of names, and at the end, the player who had missed even punched me in the face. All the accumulated rage hit me at once. Without thinking twice, I struck the offender in the face with my hockey stick. The guy collapsed on the ice like a fallen tree, hands covering his face, blood streaming from his nose. I gripped the stick and looked around at the others. Everyone stood in silence until one of the guys said, "It's your own fault, man. Mike had nothing to do with it." That evening, the victim's mother came running to our house. My parents were shocked that their son had hurt someone. "They should be thankful he didn't kill him," Uncle Jack grimly joked and laughed. From that moment on, everything changed. No one called me names or harassed me anymore. I was accepted into the pack like everyone else. In my remaining childhood years, I went to different activities, learned some music, played hockey. Uncle Jack was already serving as an army officer. During one of his visits home, he took me to a martial arts dojo. "You're unlikely to become a great athlete," he said, "but you'll learn to protect yourself and your family." That was the last time I ever saw him. 6 months later, he was killed in action in Afghanistan, my first irreplaceable loss. Classes at the dojo taught me self-control. I'm not just talking about the fighting skills I learned. Strange as it may seem, I was making progress. I was even competing in state competitions, but that wasn't my ultimate goal. I went to a community college and 2 years later became a certified automotive technician, then completed additional training in diesel mechanics. But I never went straight into civilian work. I was drawn to military service. Uncle Jack stories had done their job and changed my life's direction. In my second year of college, I met Sarah, an ordinary girl from an ordinary middle-class family. A natural blonde with brown eyes, she was predental and dating my study partner at the time. They were planning to get engaged. There wasn't just a spark between Sarah and me. There was lightning. She broke off her relationship with her boyfriend despite the protests of her family and friends. 6 months later, we were married. A year after that, twins were born. A boy and a girl, Jack and Emma. I adapted quickly in the army. I went to several deployments, including one to Africa. I was sent as an instructor to train local forces in artillery operations. I served as a mortar instructor for 6 months. One day, returning from training exercises, I broke the cardinal rule about not drinking local water. It was blazing hot, and I couldn't help myself. As a result, I contracted hepatitis and was sent back home for treatment. I was hospitalized for about a month. Hepatitis is a persistent condition, and my liver took the first hit. When I was discharged, the doctor said I was lucky, but there could be problems in the future. He didn't specify what kind. A year later, I was wounded rather seriously in an IED explosion. Further active service was out of the question. I retired from the reserves with the rank of staff sergeant and started adapting to civilian life. I must say that my wife was always there for me. Well, except when I was deployed, of course. She never left me for a single day, didn't run off to her mother's house to take a break from her husband like some wives do. I always knew there was a loving woman waiting for me at home, ready to watch my back. When I became a civilian, I looked around for a while and then opened Mike's Auto Repair. It might seem like nothing special, but don't underestimate it. I had a waiting list. There are always car enthusiasts who want to fix their beloved vehicles. New parts cost a fortune, and quality repairs are reasonably priced. After 2 years, the shop expanded, and in addition to repairs, I began specializing in classic car restoration and custom modifications. Sarah worked as a dentist at the Riverside Dental Group and also earned good money. We had a large house in a nice subdivision that we'd bought with a VA loan, plus a spacious workshop behind the house that I'd built myself. The children went to good schools and everything was fine. I must say that Sarah was one of those rare types of women who don't show their age. On the contrary, by her 30s, she had become even more beautiful. Not a single wrinkle on her face, naturally curly hair, a beautiful figure, and long legs. And all this was my wife. I, on the other hand, began to have some problems. My body started gaining weight, a consequence of the hepatitis. Gradually, my physique got heavier. I lost the muscle definition I'd maintained since the army. That would have been manageable, but I noticed that my wife became self-conscious about appearing with me in public. No, the love was still there, but we went out together less frequently. We really did love each other. We were always together, both at work events and on vacations. Recently, there had been a trend toward elaborate office parties. Everyone who was anyone attended these kinds of events. Sometimes my wife went to these gatherings, sometimes with me, sometimes alone. I had no reason to forbid her from having fun, but at some point, I began to catch strange looks from her colleagues. I didn't pay much attention to this, but subconsciously I became tense. Something was going on behind my back, but I couldn't yet understand what. Richard Bradley, a well-known businessman in our town, had been coming to my wife's dental practice for some time. In recent years, he had built a solid position in the real estate development business, but then he developed dental problems. Sarah was skilled in cosmetic dentistry and successfully completed an extensive treatment plan. But the businessman became obsessed with his dental health and sought daily appointments, always arriving with bouquets of flowers. One day, I decided to pick up Sarah after work. As I was kissing my wife, out of the corner of my eye I noticed the businessman with flowers, but he turned around quickly and walked past us, pretending to be heading to another office in the building. It didn't escape my notice that Sarah blushed deeply and averted her eyes. You know how blondes blush. One night at dinner, Sarah turned to me. Mike, Richard, you know him, is throwing a party. He wants to invite you and me. She said this casually while pouring me coffee. What does that have to do with us? I snorted and looked at my wife. I knew about her so far platonic relationship with Bradley. I had even considered intervening in their budding friendship, but for the time being, I decided to observe what would happen. I trusted my wife. Besides, the businessman wasn't the only man who paid attention to Sarah. I couldn't be jealous of every guy in pants who walked around her. He wants to thank me for the successful treatment. Lots of prominent people will be there, live music. We're invited. The party is this Friday. By the way, Sarah, I wanted to talk to you about Bradley. It seems to me that he's trying to pursue you. It reminds me of hunting, even from the outside. You can see he wants to get hold of you. Doesn't it seem like he's playing games? I put down my coffee cup, half finished. Mike, I have nothing going on with him. Yes, he gives me some attention, but no more than that. Well, maybe you realize that if something else happens, it would be a disaster for us. Mike, don't be silly. I just want to go to the party, and I want you to be there too. I'm not going to flirt with anyone. Sarah blushed, and I continued. I think Richard will pursue you in every way he can. Can you imagine how things will turn out if he succeeds? I watched Sarah's reaction carefully. After all, we are adults. We won't be there alone, and there will be other people around. I can take care of myself. Don't be worried. My wife ran her fingers caressingly over my cheek, and in the end, I agreed. Sarah had talked me into it, but I didn't decide to go because I listened to my wife. I wanted to settle the matter with Sarah and the businessman once and for all. The party was scheduled to start at 7 in the evening. Sarah was putting on makeup in front of the mirror. She looked like a model on a runway. Her dark red, almost burgundy dress looked stunning, to say the least. It subtly emphasized my wife's nearly perfect figure, perfectly showcasing her curves in all the right places. I don't know why it upset me. Some bad feeling had not left me for days. I dressed simply, black slacks, a white shirt, and a navy blazer. I thought for a long time about what to wear on my feet and settled on black leather shoes. Maybe not the most fashionable, but functional. Sarah hugged me and kissed me on the lips. Do you think I look good? I answered grimly. You look amazing. You know it yourself. I only wonder one thing. Who are you so dressed up for? For you, my love. Only for you. Listen, let's not go. To hell with this party. We'll have a great time at home. I was grasping at straws to postpone the inevitable disaster. Honey, we had a deal. Sarah pouted. You look great too, by the way. I looked at my wife and took her in my arms. She took my hands from her shoulders and looked at me reproachfully. Mike, you'll wrinkle the dress. I realized that in her mind, she had long been at the party. For a moment, I thought I was saying goodbye to my wife. I took her by the arm and walked her to the door. As we were walking down to the car, without changing my body position, I flipped off the porch light with my left hand above my head. My emotions vanished into thin air in an instant. I was ready. We arrived almost on time. The gate was open, and we drove freely into the parking area in front of the house. A valet ran up to us, but I didn't trust him with my car. He just showed me the empty spaces. I didn't hesitate and took the spot closest to the exit to be able to leave freely if necessary. I did everything automatically. My subconscious mind and my not-quite-lost army skills worked for me. I gave the valet money and asked him not to block my car, leaving a clear exit path. Sarah looked at my maneuvers with surprise and concern. What's all this for? It's like you're getting ready for something bad. Relax, my love. Everything will be fine. But I didn't care what she said. I just shrugged it off. It's just a precaution. We'll see how things work out. I answered vaguely. The most important thing is that this party isn't the end of our marriage. My wife turned pale. It seemed to me that she knew something, was ready for something. But what? Damn, This is going bad before it even starts. But maybe all is not lost yet. We walked to the front door and up the marble steps. Just before the door, Sarah turned to me. Mike, let's have fun today. Neither you nor I want any trouble. Let's relax and enjoy the nice company and good music. The door swung open, and a young man asked for our names. I gave our names. He looked at the guest list for a while and then said, Sarah Donovan and guest. He looked at me, and I saw a sneer in his eyes. 2 people. Come on in. Have a nice evening. I looked at my wife in surprise. And guest? Like a free add-on. Cold rage stirred in my stomach. Sarah looked at me strangely and squeezed my palm reassuringly. As we passed, I saw out of the corner of my eye a contemptuous smirk on the lips of the doorman. At the entrance to the main hall, we were met by Mr. Bradley himself. Beside him stood a young woman in a very short emerald dress. Her short, cropped black hair beautifully framed her tan face. She smelled of expensive perfume. The host kissed my wife's hand. You are a miracle worker. I just have no words. Then the businessman turned to me. You're Mike. I've heard a lot about you. Nice to meet you. He smiled at Sarah. Please, call me Richard. He held out his hand for me to shake. I took it. He started to squeeze it hard. I responded, looking into his eyes. I could see that he was already in pain and trying his best not to show it. Okay, that was enough for the first impression. I released my grip. There was a long pause. Then Richard smiled and said, Come on in, friends. Make yourselves at home. Meet our other guests. He didn't introduce his companion to us. A lot of people had already gathered. A few local business owners and their wives, a couple of lawyers from downtown firms, and several attractive women whose relationships to other guests weren't clear. There was also someone from the mayor's office. I didn't know the rest and, to be honest, didn't want to know them. I was worried about something else entirely. Sarah kissed me on the cheek and went to freshen up. I wandered around, trying to stay close to the bar. I grabbed a glass of club soda and took a sip, slowly looking around the room. I wasn't planning to drink alcohol this evening. I saw Sarah appear in the hall. Richard immediately walked up to her and took her by the elbow. Sarah turned to him and smiled, then said something to him that made him nod eagerly. Richard looked around, saw his companion, and waved her away. Someone put their hand on my shoulder. I turned around to see the host's friend with a cute smile looking at me. My name is Stella. Could you get me some champagne? She really was beautiful, not as beautiful as Sarah, but still striking. I took a flute from the bar and handed it to the woman. You're amazing, she said. Frankly, I wasn't in the mood for flirting, so I just mumbled the first thing that came to mind. It was bad timing when she approached me. Wait. I remembered Richard waving at her. Okay, I get it. This woman seemed to be reserved for me so that I wouldn't get in the way that night. We had a brief conversation, nothing substantial, just small talk. She kept staring at me, maintaining eye contact, clearly letting me know she was willing to do more than just talk. Meanwhile, I continued to watch my wife over Stella's shoulder. Sarah and the host were dancing 2 quick songs, and then they went to the bar. Another unfamiliar couple approached them. Sarah was having a good time. She had completely forgotten that she had come here with her husband. I see you can't take your eyes off your wife, Stella grinned. Don't worry about her. She has a very busy evening ahead of her, and Richard won't let her get bored. Look at me. I'm your consolation prize tonight. I wasn't surprised. I just looked at the woman with a cold, steady stare. She even shivered. She apparently didn't expect such a reaction. I figured it out. Probably not tonight, though. She stepped away from me quickly and disappeared from sight. I glanced at Sarah again. She was dancing enthusiastically with Richard, a slow dance. The dance floor was almost empty, with only 2 couples on it. A small stage was occupied by a jazz trio. The other couple was embracing intimately. My wife and the businessman were being less obvious about it, but he whispered something in her ear, and she moved closer to him. It was obvious that Sarah was sinking deeper into romantic fantasy. Finally, she let Richard wrap his arms around her waist and pull her close. He kissed her openly without hiding. I could see that Sarah didn't realize what she was doing. I knew it was time to intervene. I walked onto the dance floor. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw two intimidating-looking security guards move away from the opposite wall. I tapped the Romeo on the shoulder. "Change of partner." The host answered irritably, not letting my wife out of his embrace. "Get lost, you loser. Sarah is mine tonight." "Uncle, aren't you confused? She's my wife, so you get lost." Richard, holding Sarah's hand, waved to his security team. They slowly approached. I looked at my wife. She made no attempt to pull away from Richard's grasp. "You set me up. We're leaving now. If you stay here, there's no going back." Suddenly, everything became clear to me. I no longer had any doubts about what would happen next. My rage had to be unleashed on someone. "Mike, my love, it's only one evening. You wouldn't leave me because of one evening, would you?" "One evening, Sarah?" I was almost shouting. "You want to be with that man so badly that you're willing to throw away everything we have?" The music stopped, and my words rang out across the room. The host could see I was furious. He realized it was time to silence the stubborn husband who didn't want to give up his wife to be claimed by the alpha male. He waved his hand carelessly in the direction of the bodyguards. "Mike, you could have had a great time with Stella, and Sarah could have had fun too. I don't understand why you didn't agree. You liked her, didn't you?" Sarah was almost crying. "Of course he did. The jealous husband ruined the whole evening. Get that fool out of here now." Richard was no longer hiding his contempt. The security guards came at me from two sides. I waited, keeping my eyes on my wife. They grabbed me, trying to pin my arms. Sarah covered her mouth with her palm and just stared without moving. Then she hid behind Richard's back. It seemed that she no longer considered me her husband. I stomped on the left guard's instep with my heel, then sharply turned and freed my left hand, hitting the second one in the throat with my knuckles. Then I did the same to the first. They collapsed like falling trees, their heads hitting the dance floor with distinctive thuds. There was nothing holding me back now. Everything was clear. I didn't have a wife anymore. Richard swung at me, but I caught fear in his eyes. I took a step in his direction and smiled predatorily. I kicked him hard in the groin with the toe of my shoe, and as he doubled over, I brought my knee up into his jaw. The businessman went down faster than his security guards. It all happened so fast that no one realized what had occurred until it was over. Richard tried to get up, shaking his head. I took a step toward him, clenching my fists. Sarah suddenly shouted, "Mike, no! You're going to kill him!" Someone yelled, "Call the police!" I watched as my wife tried to help her lover to his feet. "You animal! How could you?" In her anger, she couldn't find the right words. "I'm leaving. Are you coming with me?" I spoke slowly and clearly. "Get out. You disgust me." That's what I needed to hear. I looked once more at the scene and, without looking at my wife, left the house at a brisk pace. No one tried to stop me. I went out to the parking lot. It was already dark. I leaned back in the driver's seat and turned the ignition key. The engine started instantly, rumbling like a big, well-fed cat. I carefully drove out of the parking area, slowing down for a moment as if I expected to see a repentant Sarah in the rearview mirror. Then I gently pressed the gas and slowly rolled through the open gate. One thing I was sure of, after I'd kicked him where it counted, the idiot was unlikely to be capable of anything with my wife that night. Before I reached the highway, I pulled out my cell phone and dialed a familiar number. They picked up almost immediately, as if they'd been waiting impatiently for my call. "How did it go?" asked my contact. "A little worse than I thought it would be." I opened the glove compartment and took out a full pack of cigarettes. "I hope you didn't go too far." I heard a chuckle on the phone. "No, it's all good." I flicked my lighter. Need any help? I don't know yet. Keep in touch. I hung up. Within minutes, my car was racing toward town. I decided to spend the night in my grandfather's old apartment downtown. Pained me to go back to the place where it all began. There were paintings on all the walls, even in the kitchen, landscapes, portraits, still lives. I didn't know the names of the artists. My grandfather had been fond of art, and only he had known which artists had left their mark on his collection. This apartment smelled like my childhood. I often visited my grandfather and stayed overnight with him. It smelled like pipe tobacco and the smoke from a lit fireplace. Here, in the old place, I wanted to wait out some time and reflect on what had happened. I lit the fireplace even though it was early autumn and warm enough, but I wanted at least for a minute to bring back my childhood, to touch the time that had passed, to turn back the clock. I poured myself half a glass of bourbon and sat down in my grandfather's chair, stretching my legs toward the fire. I didn't notice when I dozed off. The doorbell woke me up. It was 3 a.m. Without throwing off the blanket from my shoulders and losing my slippers on the way, I went to the door. I opened it and saw Sarah. I looked at her. She was staring at me, tears rolling from her red eyes. She looked awful, no better than I did. Mike, I knew you were here. In all my life, I had never messed up so badly. I'm sorry. It won't happen again, never again. I don't want to lose you. She sobbed and put her head down. We had nothing. I left after Richard was taken away by ambulance. I shrugged my shoulders. Well, at least that's some good news. So, Sarah, what did you think would happen when you decided to let that idiot have an evening with you? Did you think I wouldn't see it coming? Because of Stella? I was an idiot, a narcissistic fool. Tell me, did you and Richard plan this whole thing? Did you know beforehand what was going to happen at the party? She looked down. Not everything, only in general terms. He suggested that when we got there we might switch partners. But I thought I would say no, and that would be the end of it. But you didn't say no. You said yes. I thought you were going to stay with Stella. I saw the way she looked at you. It was one night. What about after that? Did you really think we would have gone on as before, when I would have known that you were involved with another man? When we both would have known about it? How could I trust you after that? We continued to stand in the entryway. I didn't invite her into the apartment. I can understand why you thought Stella would distract me that night, but why did you think this creep would be better than me? She was silent. She had no answers to my questions. Sarah, go away. Just go away. I don't have a wife anymore. You betrayed me there with your lover. He is not my lover. He is. I didn't let her finish, closing the door quietly. She stood on the landing for a while, and then I heard the clatter of her heels. A few minutes later, I heard the sound of a car driving away on Tuesday. An older, imposing man walked into my shop. Mr. Michael Donovan? He carried himself with authority, scrutinizing me through his glasses. Yes. To whom do I have the honor? Daniel Rossi, Mr. Bradley's attorney. The man tilted his head. Shall I sit down? To what do I owe the honor? I took out a cigar and defiantly began to cut the tip. Mr. Bradley intends to sue you for financial compensation for the injuries you inflicted last Friday evening. I wondered where Bradley had found this character. He should be standing guard at a casino, not practicing law. And what's stopping Mr. Bradley from doing that? I lit a match and began to smoke my cigar. The unexpected guest paused before continuing. Before he puts you behind bars and destroys your business, Mr. Bradley wants to make you an offer. I was silent, concentrating on blowing smoke rings. Mr. Bradley agrees to forget about the conflict if your wife spends this weekend with him at his estate. The lawyer even blushed at such an offer. Even this jerk in an expensive suit knew that no normal man would ever agree to that. And why did you come to me? Go to my ex-wife and make arrangements with her. After all, after the last party, it's her problem. It's not like your boss is asking me to spend the weekend with him. I clamped my cigar in my teeth and stood up, showing that we had nothing more to talk about. The lawyer stood up and silently left my shop. That I looked at myself in the mirror with a cigar in my teeth. Well, just like Clint Eastwood, only a little heavier. I sat in silence for a while, then took out my cell phone. One day later, an old van stopped in front of Bradley's mansion. Two guys in orange utility uniforms walked to the gate. Gas company emergency services. There's been a reported leak in your neighborhood. We're checking all the houses, the taller one said to the guard. The guard spoke on his radio for a while, then said, "Go ahead," and opened the gate. Accompanied by two security personnel, the gas company workers went down to the basement where the main gas line entered the house. One of the repair men reached into his pocket and opened a small device. There was a noticeable smell of gas. "There seems to be a leak down here somewhere," said the tall man, setting his toolbox on the floor. "You smell that gas?" The gas workers started examining the meter. "When did you last have the pipes inspected?" asked the shorter one. The guard shrugged his shoulders. "Okay, we'll close the main valve and fix the leak, but you still need to have the entire system updated. Tell the owner it has to be done as quickly as possible." The shorter technician started taking tools out of his case. The tall one, using his back to block the view, quickly attached a small timing device to the main gas line and wrapped it with electrical tape. The shorter one worked beneath the pipes, discreetly opening a secondary valve. "Well, that should do it. If anything else happens, call the emergency number." He didn't specify what might happen. The guys picked up their tools and briskly headed for the exit. The guard locked the basement doors tightly. 3 hours later, there was an explosion from a gas leak in the basement that caused a massive fire. By the time rescue crews arrived, the house had almost completely burned down. Fortunately, no one was killed, though several guards and the cook received minor burns. Mr. Bradley had no time for romantic pursuits after that. His warehouse of finished construction materials caught fire as well. In addition to real estate development, Bradley was also engaged in the manufacture of custom building materials and fixtures. Everything prepared for delivery to customers was destroyed. The investigation concluded that faulty electrical wiring had caused the explosion. To calm his nerves, businessman Bradley urgently went abroad to Thailand for a vacation. But at Bangkok Airport, suspicious substances were found in his luggage. He was immediately taken to detention and is now awaiting trial. How this will turn out for him remains to be seen. I live alone in my apartment. Sarah won't give up trying to make peace with me, but I can't forgive her. I still have her words ringing in my ears. "Get out! You disgust me." Oh, and one more thing, I made a donation to the Iron Eagles Veterans Club, of which I have been a member for almost 10 years. Nobody knows about my involvement. Thank you for your viewing. See you next time. If you enjoyed this, subscribe to JK Tells a Story for more tales.